Michael, I know Park has a long history of educating adult learners and working students. How do you manage this, and how do you think about getting those kinds of people an international experience?
To begin with, you have to think about the needs of that student population.
Mm-hmm.
And adult education is different, and working adults have additional kinds of time constraints. And one factor that's really contributed to the increased number of working adults in the classroom has been the online technology that's really provided the access and a very flexible learning environment for those people. And so Park's used that. The average age for undergraduates at Park is 32. Park has been educating these adults for many decades, and it's something to focus. And when you think about the global workforce, I mean, the birth rate in the United States, but not just the United States, in developing countries generally, the birth rate has declined. The population is aging. There are more people going to be working into their 70s. There's so many baby boomers that we're going to have a huge retirement over the next several decades. That's a senior talent level that needs to be replaced. And so much of what we think about when we think of how we're going to educate the global workforce has to be around adult education. And whenever you're talking about adult education, you have to think about innovative uses of technology and online education. So Park has done that. And we hear all the time from students who will have a class, it'll be an online class, and they're interacting with people all over the world. And they talk about that. And so we make a good use of the online technology.
I think the goal, though, needs to be to get as many of our students traveling outside the United States on one experience as possible, though. I mentioned the money and all that. That's the problem. But I think the goal needs to be that. We were in Spain this last about a year ago and had my 14-year-old with us. And we had been at a board meeting there, and my wife was there, and the wine was very nice that evening. We had a lot of it. And so we're coming out afterwards, and my 14-year-old son goes and hails a cab and tells him how to get to our hotel. Okay? And for my wife and I, you look and you say the confidence that he has gotten being outside the United States, not speaking the language, and having the confidence to do that, that's the kind of experience that so many of our students need. Not hailing a cab after having too much wine, not that. They get that anyway. But that is the goal, is that we would graduate students from our university that would have the confidence that when they're working for you all and you say, okay, you got to go down to this place and I need you to meet this person, that they're not going to offend people, they're not going to be the loud American stereotypes, they're going to feel comfortable traveling internationally, and it won't be the first time they've ever been outside the United States or been through passport control or those kind of things. We take that for granted when you travel a little bit. That, I think, needs to be our goal. The question becomes, how is it that we can facilitate that in an aggressive fashion? And I think that's where I want to see us go. But I think this is a significant challenge for us, particularly in the region in the United States. 20 years ago, we were by far the innovator in things like medicine and healthcare in those particular areas. And I know this is a very controversial topic, but just if you consider stem cells and things like this, we now have other areas of the world that are equally well equipped with highly trained people that are very aggressive. And so you've got South Korea and these other places that are pouring millions of dollars into building that infrastructure. And I think we didn't have those competitors 20 years ago, and today we've got them out there. And so I think if we're not careful in general, if we gut the research enterprise in the United States too much over the next 10 to 15 years, we're going to find ourselves sort of a little bit behind on that innovation, which is where we have been able to build our economy. So I think it's actually a very critical time for this country and for this region to continue to invest in that research and innovation so that we can be out there in front of the world and not get behind. Because once you get behind, boy, it is tough to ever try and overinvest to catch up.
Michael, I see you nodding your head over there.
Well, the research absolutely depends upon international collaboration, and especially in areas like biomedical sciences. It's just how that research happens. It's rare that an investigator is off in the laboratory by him or herself and comes up with the big. It's just too complex and too all-encompassing. So research projects already are collaboratives of people from all around the world. Fortunately, more people migrate to America still more than any other country. So the trick will be the retention.
Okay.
And since the birth rate's down and the aging and the retirements, a critical group we have to help each other be successful with are immigrants. And the most effective way to bring talent from around the world is to recruit them here in their younger years into the American higher education system, and then try to retain them from there. So, yes, I'm in complete agreement. The research depends upon the international. And the Chronicle, just published this week, has all over the front of it how Asia is upping the game with huge investments into their education and especially their sciences. About 60% of the U.S. Workforce in aerospace and defense is already over 50, 60 years old. And those kinds of areas in research take a long time to develop a workforce to be really have the world-class effort going.
Let's go back to an earlier comment about, crisis forcing sometimes change and action. I think one of the things that's happening in higher education is that particularly state schools, given our financial distress, are re-examining what is our real mission. And what I think what's happening is people are starting to look regionally and say, we've got to be supporting business and industry and stuff in this particular region because that's important. That's a lot of times why places were founded 120 years ago, 130 years ago. And so I think what we have to do is be working with people in our region and try and go in the same direction. So if we in the Kansas City area are looking at developing strengths in something and it's going to support the industry trying to do the same things, are we producing graduates with backgrounds and things that are sufficient to help those folks go forward? So I think it's a long-term planning, but it's not going to be us putting out a product and saying, well, I hope you like it, which is what higher ed's done for many, many years, sort of like the GM approach to auto manufacturing. Well, there it is, and I hope you like it. And I think now we got to be talking a little bit more strategically long term, saying this is where our folks are going, and we need to make sure that we're providing graduates with the skill sets to help our folks in the area be successful.
Chris, Michael?
I've got two very direct ones. I think companies at all levels of their workforce need to add in the job description a commitment to speak to an educational classroom, whether it's at a grade school, high school, college level. I mean, part of your job description is you've got to do that about your global experience or your work experience, whatever it is. On the other side, I think the universities, the higher education, need to mandate in that first 2 years of basic education a global education, whether it's a class or two classes, some sort of
Got to do it. Got to be
exposure.
there. Okay.